one of those people that prefers the cold months to the hot months. I know, it's a hot take, but one of my favorite things to do in the world is to curl up inside, warm and cozy, while it's cold and stormy and snowy outside. And I like to curl up with cozy blankets, a good book, and just read. It's one of those things I look forward to every year. It just brings me back to my childhood, makes me feel safe, makes me feel happy. It's a great time. And I was realizing there's a few types of books, and there's a few books in particular that I just really associate with these months, and I'd love to share them with you. Alright, so the first one is a bit of a personal one to me. It's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. It's one of the books in the Narnia series, probably the most famous of all the books in the Narnia series. And when I think about kind of quintessential winter scenes in all the novels that I've read, and I guess the movies that I've consumed, because The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a great movie in my opinion. One of the scenes that stands out the most is this scene where Lucy is walking through the magic wardrobe into this wintry forest. There's a component of escapism in this book that I think appeals to all audiences. It's definitely a book that can be read to younger audiences, but it holds up to older audiences as well. By no means is it a literary masterpiece, but the themes it's dealing with are also not these kind of simple-minded, just pleasure for the sake of pleasure themes. It's definitely a moralistic book, and so you can kind of choose the level that you want to engage with it. If you want to read it purely for entertainment, it's an entertaining book. If you want to engage with the themes in a deeper way, you can also do that. For me, the book reminds me of childhood, playing make-believe, playing with your imagination, and I love how the winter evokes that. So if you haven't read this book, do yourself a service and read it. If you don't know, running is a really big part of my life. And when I think about the emotional role that running plays, it's really a distillation of the process of dreaming. So you set some goal in your future, how fast you want to run, or a race that you want to win, and then you do all this training to get there. And it's this very simple task, put one foot in front of the other a certain amount of times in a certain amount of time. A very simple goal-directed task that you can come back to again, and again, and there's no ceiling to it. There's a book that captures this essence, I think, beautifully, and that's Once a Runner. The book is a novel by John L. Parker Jr., and it's a story about a runner, and in particular, a runner's path to greatness, running the mile. So there's definitely a little bit of my personal experience bleeding out onto this, but it's also, I think, just this beautiful book about someone pursuing their dreams and doing what it takes to get there, while at the same time retaining a very human element. I have a problem with some novels about pursuing dreams because they get too fantastical, too mystical, and that has value for sure, but it doesn't relate so much to my own life. And when I think about the winter, for me, the winter is a time of dreaming. I'm thinking about what I want to do in the upcoming year, and so I want books that make me think like that. And this was absolutely a book that made me think about my own life, the things that I want to do in it, while not discarding the fact that, yeah, I'm a human, I have a life to live outside of these, purified, isolated, distilled tasks. The next novel that I recommend is one that I just finished. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I hope I got that right. This is a Booker Prize finalist. As a novel, it is a beautiful piece of art. I mean, the prose is fantastic. The structure of the novel, I think, is really sound, how it's broken into parts, how the chapters alternate, but it still tells a coherent story. Even though temporally it's broken up, the frustration that you feel as a result of that is frustration to know what happens next, not frustration because you're confused. That's a really hard thing to do in a novel. Yanagihara does it very well. But outside of kind of the formal appreciation for the novel, the characters in this novel are just so human. I want to be very clear, this is one of the most tragic books that I've ever read. I was deeply sad when reading it. If you read this, you will also be deeply sad. This is just a warning to you. I don't want you to pick this book up expecting it to be kind of like a happy, fun book. It's not. What I found though when I was reading this book is because it's telling a tragic story at a very zoomed in level. It's looking at, in particular, essentially one person and their close friends. It's looking at this small little life and this tragedy that's unfolding in this little life throughout time. And it really made me look at my own little life and the people around me, and to recognize how much I appreciate them and how much I appreciate what I have and how lucky I am. And to me, that's one of the really essential things about winter, is coming together with people you're close to, people that you love, and appreciating them. And so this book, as tragic as it was, made me look at my own life and say, you know what? I really appreciate these people. I really appreciate what I have. And I think for a novel to do that is a really powerful thing. This next book is one of the longer books. A Little Life is also very long. I think it's like 800 plus pages. This book is The Count of Monte Cristo. And I've talked about this in videos in the past, but this is one of my favorite novels of all time. This book's by Alexandre Dumas, who's a very famous writer. And what's interesting about this novel is, I'm reading a translation from the original French, so the prose is nothing really special. It's not super fun to read. The characters, I find, they're interesting, but they're not that relatable. They're not that human. I'm not reading for any of those reasons. I'm reading for the narrative structure, for the arc that the character is going through. Imprisonment, and then redemption, and mystery, and so on. And I was trying to figure out why this book came into my mind when I was thinking about winter read, but I was thinking about this theme of imprisonment and of dreaming of the future. And what I realized is this is a theme that is dealt with heavily in the book, and it's also a theme that we deal with in winter. We're kind of trapped in our own little bubbles. The outside world becomes inhospitable for a while, and we have to think about what are we going to do in the next year. And so it's an exaggeration of this theme, but it's really talking about the same things, and I really appreciate the book for that. All right, we're into the only nonfiction book on this list of recommendations. I think about the winter as a fiction time. I couldn't really tell you why. I guess it's just that cozy, feeling you want to get lost in a story. But this is a book that when I read it, it got me lost in a different type of story. A story of history, true history, and scientific and cultural research. So the book is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. It's a book about psychedelics and how psychedelics might influence mental health care. But more broadly, it's also a commentary on the culture around psychedelic drugs. And what I think Pollan does a really excellent job of is crafting a narrative of the history behind these drugs. Where did they originate from? How did they gain the cultural baggage that they most definitely have today from a legal and criminal perspective? And what are we missing in our perception of them today? And how could they be useful in the future? Pollan is an excellent writer. I think he does a really good job of breaking down what can be confusing and complicated and to be quite honest, off-putting. And he condenses it all into a very manageable format, where you feel like what you're reading is just someone exploring their curiosities and just digging deeper on these questions. And I love nonfiction books like that. Essentially for the sake of curiosity, not really doing this moral grandstanding, not really having these strong opinions, getting up on these podiums that they can't get off of. It's a book that is a curious book. It's about exploring questions and questioning things that you previously believed. And when I read this book for the first time, it really sent me down this path of learning about this world of psychedelic research. I read a bunch of books, I took a few courses, and to this day it's one of my major research interests. And so thinking about the winter as a time of rebirth, I think, well, what better topic to deal with, first of all, with rebirth than psychedelics and psychedelic culture? But second of all, just the idea of questioning what you believe and really being introspective and saying, well, is what I believe accurate? Is it true? And if not, well, what should I believe? I'd now like to thank Audible for sponsoring this video. And Audible has been an amazing partner to me over the years, and I use their product every day, and I have since before I started working with them. To me, Audible is the perfect place for audio content, be it audiobooks, podcasts, or more. Right now, the audiobook that I'm listening to is Billion Dollar Whale by Tom Wright and Bradley Hope. And it's this fascinating tale of a fraudster who is able to obtain huge sums of money from royal families and governments, and he used it to live this debaucherous lifestyle, and he also used it to fund the Wolf of Wall Street movie. It's an amazing listen. If you're into financial crime and drama like I am, I definitely recommend it. Right now, Audible has an amazing deal, where if you sign up right now through audible.com/JohnFish, or you text JohnFish to 500-500, you can get 60% off your first 3 months of membership. So it's only $5.95 a month. And what that'll get you is it'll get you a credit each month for an audiobook of your choosing in their massive collection, as well as access to their Plus catalog, where you have tons of all-you-can-listen audiobooks, you have podcasts, guided meditations, and more. It's really an amazing deal. So you can get this deal if you go to audible.com/JohnFish or text code JohnFish to 500-500. I love Audible, like I said. I use it pretty much every day. All the audio content on there is just vetted to such a degree that I know that I'm getting a quality listen every time, and hasn't let me down in the years of listening that I've had so far. So I hope you got something out of these recommendations. These are all books that I absolutely loved. And hopefully you find one that you can also love this winter, wrapped in blankets, maybe drinking some hot chocolate while it's snowing outside, something like that. Let me know if you have books that you think I should read in the comments below, and maybe they'll show up in a future video. I really do want to be making more videos right now, but school is very overwhelming. I'm in the middle of finals and getting ready for finals, and it's just one of those things where I'm realizing I only have so many semesters left. I have this semester and next semester, and then I'm gone. And so I'm really trying to make the most of it. Anyways, you'll see more of me soon. Feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate it if you did. Feel free to like the video. Hope you're taking care of yourself. I'll see you again soon.